You're watching Behind the Headlines. I'm Pacchia. We're just a couple of weeks past the shooting that killed 26 people at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, but the tragedy is already spurring litigation. Attorney Irving Pinsky from New Haven, Connecticut, is planning to sue the state for not doing enough to prevent the shooting on behalf of a little girl who survived. Irving joins us now to discuss. Irving, thanks for coming in. Welcome.
Thank you, Lee.
So, in Connecticut, people might not know this, you need to obtain permission to file this kind of lawsuit. You applied for permission last week, but recently withdrew the petition. Why is that? What's going on here?
Yes, I applied for permission from the commissioner to get permission to sue his state that he works for. So before he turned me down, I got new evidence. So he didn't turn me down. So I figured I better withdraw it so I can evaluate my new evidence and then revise my petition so that it's more powerful.
Can we flesh that out a little bit? What's the new evidence?
Oh, well, the new evidence basically has to do with the negligence of the state and the city and other parties. And I have had people come to me with this. Some of it's still being evaluated. And it may not be authentic. We have to be very afraid of that. So until I've authenticated it and I'm ready to present it in court or to the public, I'm going to make sure I'm giving good evidence instead of something which I may have been snookered into.
Yeah, much is being made of the choice of who you want to sue for what happened here. We saw some really vitriolic comments come out over the blogosphere and Twitter in response just to the thought of having a lawsuit like this. What made you pick the state as a targeted defendant for this action?
Well, that's only one potential targeted defendant. There's a lot of parties who may have been involved in this young man's life over 20 years in the school. And we don't know where our evidence is going to take us. But the state was first on my mind because of the fact that we had to get through the preliminary before we could even file a suit. And we only have 1 year to file for the preliminary. So therefore, I couldn't wait. And wait, more important than that, I didn't want to wait because I wanted to freeze the evidence. There's a lot of evidence out there. Right now, I assume from my experience that the insurance companies already have insurance evaluators down there and detectives. I know the police are investigating, and they work for the city and the state. I know the Attorney General is investigating, and I know that other parties will be covering their you-know-whats. So my attitude is, why shouldn't my client have someone to get them evidence and preserve that?
Some say it's impossible for anyone to see a tragedy like this happening. How do you get to the point that you can say that this was reasonably foreseeable? I mean, that's the standard.
I love that question.
With.
Every day, 8 days a week, if you will, in New York and Connecticut, the police, the judges, the lawyers take people off the streets who are about to kill a lot of people. They're constantly arresting these people with the rage. And what happens is it's successful. But every so often, one gets through. Aurora, Columbine, Virginia Tech, 35 dead on a college campus. All right? Bang, gone. All right? Now, I know that we can do better because I looked at it and I said, this school doesn't have the security that I would want my child to have in this era.
Right.
Now, they just put in a security system. But he shot his way right through it.
I was thinking about this interview on the way into the building today, and it almost is something that you're not aware of this day to day, but everyone, in order to go to work in Manhattan and many other parts around the country, you have to go through security in order to get to your desk. As far as I know, that's not the way things are run in public schools. Is that where public schools need to be? Do we need checkpoints? Do we need security badges for elementary school kids? It sounds crazy, but...
But we want them to live. So, yeah, we need something. Now, getting into this building and the other buildings I was in today for these types of situations is incredible. I didn't get hurt. It's not as bad as getting on an airplane where you have to take off your shoes. But let me tell you, you had to go through certain things because these are businesses that use computers and that understand the world, and they're protecting themselves. All right? Now, the schools, if their duty isn't to protect the children, hello, that answers itself.
On Monday, Connecticut Attorney General George Jepsen called your claim misguided and said a public policy response might be more appropriate. What do you suppose he meant by public policy response? Is he talking about a state-run compensation fund, similar to what we saw with 9/11 victims, or
he's a smart guy? He's a smart guy, but I don't know what he's talking about. He probably knows what he's talking about, and he's probably leaving it purposely vague because don't forget, he is a very successful politician. He runs for that office.
Is that a trial balloon statement?
It's It's something to calm it down until he can get a real position paper out. Let me say one more thing about that. Jepsen, Attorney General Jepsen, has sent investigators to it. And in his statement, he said, I haven't seen all the evidence yet. If he hasn't seen all the evidence yet, he does not know whether this is something that should go to the commission or not. He doesn't know because he hasn't seen the evidence.
Yeah.
And I have so many people telling me that they know what the case is about. Let me tell you, you don't know until you go through all the facts, and then you wait till it's cross-examined, and then you have an idea.
Right, that's how the system's supposed to work. Jepsen's quote, I got to say, was interesting because legislatures around the country have largely been silent on this issue. That said, is a tort action the right forum for redress? We saw something like this play out with drunk driving litigation and tobacco lawsuits. They led the way to changing the way society works. Does gun control compare and contrast with those previous efforts?
Well, gun control is the hottest thing I can imagine doing. The reason I'm getting all these death threats often has to do with gun control. People think I'm some sort of gun control left-winger, I guess you could call it. And I'm not. I know reality. But on the other hand, gun control away from crazy people like this fella seemed to be is exactly the world that I want to live in.
Yeah.
Nobody wants people like that to have guns.
So this, at the end of the day, is primarily about getting boards of education, school boards, to bolster the security.
Yeah.
That's it?
Oh, really? That's in my heart. That's in my heart because the truth is that I can't stand this. This is my neighborhood. These are my people. And I've alienated a lot of people in Connecticut where I'm sort of a well-known figure because of my radio shows and stuff like that. I've alienated them, and I feel bad because I spent my whole life liking them and them liking me. But now I know that they have to take action to stop it again because it's disgusting.
Right. And of course, this also, this is your job. This is what you do as a tort lawyer.
Yeah, and as a Connecticut person.
Is this just about the state of Connecticut, or are you going to add other defendants here?
Oh, well, if I can get insurance money from somebody in California who committed a tort here, who sent the guy a manual on how to shoot children, I'll go for it. But I have no limits in Connecticut, and it's not about only protecting the children in Connecticut. As far as I'm concerned, I'd like to see, and I've gotten some clues on this, some remote-controlled cameras with remote-controlled stopping weapons, non-lethal robots, non-lethal drones. You can have a drone that big with a little bit of gas on it. And the police, who monitor half the streets anyway with their remote cameras from their booths, from their camera rooms, can say, uh-oh, there's a problem there. That boy's walking up the street with a gun, and they can send a drone, and they can give him a little bit of knockout gas, and you may avoid a disaster. This is not ridiculous. This is the future. It may not be the future this year, but what's a 1-foot-long drone cost? I know they don't even cost $1,000. So if you make a high-quality one, it's $5,000.
You were saying before that this is just the beginning of litigation coming out of this particular massacre. What's next? Yeah,
well, other lawyers are coming in to bring cases too. And I don't know how many, but I know other lawyers are coming. And also what's happening is expert witnesses have to be hired and statements have to be obtained. And so far people are sending me stuff, and also videotapes have to be obtained. Now, I'd like to interview the people who taught this fellow to shoot. I'd like to interview the people whose firing ranges he was practicing on. I'd like to take a look at the computer he had. This is a little bit far out, but you have to think far out in this world. I'd like to take a look at the computer he had that he supposedly shot up or broke up, and then get the Yahoo accounts or whatever and find out what games he was playing. Because the New York Times broke a story last week on the front page about how video games are in some sort of bed with the gun manufacturers, and what they do is they put their products in there as advertising in these violent games. And I'd like to take a look at that and see if there's liability there.
Well, that's just the thing. What about the gun manufacturers? I've heard you mention almost everyone else under the sun, but do they bear any responsibility here?
In 2005, the Bush-Cheney administration passed a brutal tort reform law on gun manufacturers' liability. It's brutally tough. And we're looking at all these different ways that we can still sue. But that's a big problem with the gun manufacturers. And the irony of this is that after this massacre, I think the sales of the Bushmaster, this weapon, went up 75% because of it. And right after it was that fellow in New York who shot the police lieutenant, the firemen, with a Bushmaster too, also. So I don't know what the answer is, but I know I have to look at all this.
Irving, thank you for coming in today. Pleasure.
Great to see you.
All right, likewise. If you'd like to learn more about the cases and issues we just discussed, be sure to go check out our offerings on BloombergLaw.com and also on the Bloomberg Terminal. You can see more of our videos on YouTube, and you can follow our updates, of course, on Twitter. I'm Pacchia. Thanks for watching.